Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers. My name's Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sector, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Business Accountants and Advisors, and I like to do my little joke every week where they provide me with the coffee. Anyway, so let's be introduced to our wonderful panel. Today we've got David Owen. He's the Chief Executive of GFirst LEP. He's in position for 11 months as a Director of the Economy and Environment at Gloucestershire County Council. So we'll find out all about his new role and what's going to happen to GFirst LEP as well. We've got Gilli Appleby. She's the CEO of Gloucestershire Rape and Sexual Abuse Centre. We'll find out the amazing work that they do. And unfortunately, they're in huge demand at this time of year. Well, all the time. So we'll find out about that. And finally, never last but least, we've got Taylor Phillips. She's the CEO of Career Voyage. She's a fractional talent partner at Connectr. We'll find out what that means as well. So first of all, we'll find out what's happening in the newspapers. So let's have a look, courtesy of the BBC. So here we go. So the NHS waiting list set to grow as PM blames doctors for missing pledge, says the The Times, A&E delays put patients in danger, says doctor. The Daily Telegraph, pupils to isolate for 21 days as measles cases rises. Very worrying. That is The Guardian. Starmer criticised by left and right over plan to end small boat crisis. The Daily Express. A dirty deal. Sulas slams Labour EU migrant plan. The Financial Times. ARM shares leak 20% in the biggest US PIO for 2 years. The Daily Mail. Even in grief, we are banned from saying her name. A terrible story that. The final betrayal in the Mirror. This is about axing maybe the HS2, the bit by Manchester that's costing us an absolute fortune. The Daily Star, seconds away from World War III. And The Sun, Maddie case falling apart. It's a real mixed bag of headlines today. So David, what have you picked out for us today, please?
There's a story on the front of the Times today about our attitude as adults to children and what we see as important. And the interesting thing that's the interesting change since 1990 has been how much less significance we put on children being obedient. So being polite and good manners are still really, really important. But being obedient is much less important. And actually, the values that came out that we see as important in children and young people are independence, hard work, and imagination. And I kind of think, if you think about the sort of people you want to employ in your business, you want them to work hard, you want them to be independent, and you want them to have some imagination and some creativity. So perhaps it's not such a surprise that we've moved on from the 1990s of wanting them just to be obedient and do everything as they're told, and actually to be a bit more creative and imaginative. But an interesting shift, I thought, in the way in which we view young people. And I know that doesn't always reflect on what I hear from people when they talk to me about what they think of young people. And I always fight back and say, maybe young people aren't the problem, maybe it's us oldies.
Well, Sarah deals with a lot of young people all the time, Sarah. What's your view on that?
It's the intergenerational stuff, isn't it? I think some employability, lessons or sort of brand new stuff for kids would be good, so they understand kind of, being confident, speaking up. I think COVID stopped some of those interpersonal skills, which is Generation X. I'm a Generation Xer, and I've got kind of in abundance, really, used to speaking to people eye to eye. I think kids, it's about being independent. It's about being curious. They haven't got jobs for life. They are, they'll be changing jobs every which way. Who knows what they're going to be doing? And they need to be adaptable. They need to be flexible, and they need to decide for themselves, take responsibility and decide for themselves what they're going to be doing. I think not taking instructions from other people.
Gilli, do you agree with all that? Just a quick line.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one, because there's also the fact then I think of policies and procedures in a working environment that you do have to stick to those, though. But as a mother of two teenage boys, there's lots of creativity, and I love it. It's really good. I'm glad that they don't always do as I say.
Well, my daughters are teachers, and they might have a different opinion about obedience in classrooms, but that's a different thing to talk.
The
Thanks ever so much for
intergenerational
listening.
thing's interesting though, Sarah. There's a local skills improvement plan, and it discovered that we all assumed that young people would have really, really good IT skills. And they do, but not in using the Microsoft suite, because they don't use that. And actually the question then is, okay, so if they don't use Microsoft and they're using other things and they're really, really good at using other things, do we change our businesses because they're the next generation of talent and they're going to be running the businesses, or do we demand that they use Microsoft? Question.
Yeah, again, I think it'll be up to them in a way, you know. They're the kind of future. Well, I think we'll have to work together and collaborate and, you know, decide on a solution that fits all really, or that's best for all. And who knows? I'm sure Microsoft will be onto it, but yeah, they're much more intuitive. The way they use tech is, you know, amazing, but perhaps sometimes they haven't got the whole picture like we've got.
Okay, let's go on to the papers. What have you picked out for us, Sarah? Thanks for that, Dave.
Oh, me, sorry.
Yeah. What have you?
Yeah,
David's got. Have you got another one, David, or is no? Okay, Sarah, what have you got for the
That's fine. Yeah, I was just talking about boosting income for the poorest older people. So, you know, our life expectancy is doubled basically. So in the 1900s, we were going to live to 40 or 50. Now we're going to be living to 80 or 90, and that means basically we're going to have to work longer. And we're going to have to save more, or we're going to be poorer. So there's a big issue here, and I think that's why the government are getting involved with lots of 50, you know, over 50 campaigns. And I think we've all got 50-year careers now. So, you know, the narrative is about retiring at 50 or 60, but I think we're going to be working to 70 and 80, and lots of people are going to be doing that. But I think algorithms and the job market and how you apply for jobs needs to change, because it's very, very difficult. And if you're over 50, you need a different process and sort of high touch process, really. So the government are doing lots of work on getting the over 50s back into work.
Okay.
Because otherwise they're not going to have any more money, and it's about GDP at the end of the day. It's like when they were trying to get women back to work a few years ago, that increased GDP, and now they're trying to get the over 50s back into work, and that will increase GDP as well. And also it's good for mental health. Working gives you purpose, gives you money, gives you the social connections, really, really important. So
okay, well, I'm sure we'll come back to that when we talk about your own individual role and what you're doing. Gilli, what have you picked out from us for the papers?
Well, coming from the background that I do in terms of Gloucestershire Rape and Sexual Abuse Centre, I've picked out Annie Mac saying about from the Independent and also on the BBC saying how about female DJs have to constantly fight for safety in the music industry, and you know that rides on the back of the NHS surgeons, female surgeons saying earlier in the week, and it all kind of goes back to power and the patriarchy, and I find it interesting because I only came into this field at the beginning of the year, and so it's opened my eyes, that especially kind of my age group, as how we've grown up and just what's expected. I used to work in the health service as well, and it's just the way it is. But in actual fact, people are pointing out now, no, it's not the way it is, and it's not right. It's alarming because now you just see it in the papers all of the time, and that's good because people are speaking up and finding a voice, and that's also what we're finding, which is why we have so many referrals and so many clients seeking help. But it is an eye-opener of the way we are.
Especially that thing with the surgeons and the NHS. It was quite frightening reading that. I mean, such a epidemic proportions.
But it's a powerful, consultants hold a lot of power. They've worked hard to get there, and then there are things that are accepted. And if you read the article about, nobody intervenes, it's just, well, that's just the way it is. And it's sort of par for the course, really. No, it's very alarming. It's very good that people have spoken out, but I also think that there are a lot of women that won't. It's, at this stage, I'm afraid it's career suicide in my thoughts.
It's funny. It's not funny at all, but talking about reflecting and stuff and how we used to see things. I went to boarding school as a kid, and we were caned and we were slippered, and I remember one teacher using this in my pajamas as a 12-year-old being smacked really hard with a Dr. Martin. And you know, you can imagine the print. It hit me so hard. The print on my backside. Now, to me, I've been reflecting on this, and it's actually a physical abuse, really, in some ways. Now, you can dwell in it, and mess yourself up if you want to. Nothing I can do about it. If I really wanted to, I could chase it back. But sometimes, well, it's just the way that society's changing, but in a good way. Because nowadays you might be able to speak up and actually, you know, like you said, it's good to be in the media like this. And it's good that we have a strong media in this country with a voice to bring these people to book. Just a story I want to bring out, actually, which has been in the media quite a lot. And this is from the national stuff as well. This is about John Lewis. John Lewis shoplifting is costing John Lewis $1 million a month. Now, this is also following on a story recently from Primark, where people are walking into Primark and actually getting suitcases and just filling up suitcases of clothes and walking out, and other shops as well. Whole basket loads of food. People go into the co-op with basket loads of foods, filling it up with basket, and basically running out of the shop. And a lot of, you know, so there seems to be an epidemic of crime, of shoplifting. I think that the government doesn't seem to be doing very much about it. David, what's your view? Very quickly.
I think it's the challenge, isn't it, of some shoplifting, no doubt, will be around people's ability to afford to buy food, put food on the table. We're in a really difficult time for millions and millions of people in the country, and some of it effectively is organised crime. You know, it's people are able to get away with it. They see other people doing it and they think, why shouldn't I have a piece of the action? Why should I be paying for things when other people aren't? So I think it's a real challenge. I think it's a real challenge to police it as well. How on earth do you stop someone wandering into a shop, grabbing a load of stuff and walking back out again?
Surely it's about the punishment as well. If they get caught, the punishment is, you know, a slap on the back. Well, they don't really get punished. That's part of the problem, isn't it?
I don't know if the punishment works, though, does it? The evidence doesn't seem to show that there's that direct relationship, that people don't commit crimes and think about the punishment. They think about the reward that they're going to get, don't they? And, you know, and I guess people are assessing the risk. You know, will I get away with this? Yeah, I'll get away with it. Well, I'm 90% sure I'll get away with this. I won't get caught, so I'll just do it and get on with it. It's a scary one, because I don't know how you stop that kind of tsunami of, you know, how do you stop this getting worse and worse and worse and worse?
But does it boil down to obedience again, maybe, from when we first started this conversation about teaching kids to be obedient, teaching everybody that we've actually got to follow the letter of the law, and if we don't, there'll be anarchy. Anyway, that's getting into a different role. Okay, let's thanks ever so much for the great different bunch of stories there. So, David, let's talk about you and your role at GFirst LEP. We all know that GFirst LEP is kind of coming to its natural, its end. Where are we with it, really? Can you give us lots of business people obviously were concerned. What's going to happen to it now, and where are we?
So I don't describe it as coming to the end.
Sorry, it's not the right words, is it?
No, it's fine. So yes, the company will come to an end. The government are no longer going to provide the core funding for LEPs from next year. What they are really clear about is that they want the activities and the functions to continue, but the current government policy is that needs more democratic oversight. So they'll continue under the guise and care of the county council in our case. What they're really clear about in the guidance is that the independent business voice needs to continue. So they describe it as an economic growth board that'll be in place with business people on it. And they recognise the value of services like Growth Hub, like the other good work around business groups and business engagement that the LEP's been doing now for over a decade. So we're in that process of evolution at the moment, and just working all of that through. I've got a board meeting in a couple of weeks' time where we'll get into some of the detail on what happens next and how that happens. So I guess the reassurance for the business community is that there's a real appetite in Gloucestershire from our public sector partners to continue with the work of the LEP and the functions of the LEP, and a recognition of the good work that's happened over the last decade or so as well, and a real belief and I think this is true of Gloucestershire more generally, that working together as a county, we achieve much more than we do if we all try and work separately. So, I think we've got a really strong business community, as you know, Mark, from your work with Punchline. We've got really supportive public sector bodies as well of that business community, and a recognition that working together provides the best outputs for people in Gloucestershire and businesses in Gloucestershire. So this wouldn't be my choice, wouldn't be the choice of how we go with things, but I'm excited for the future. I think there's real opportunities for even more closer working, and for all the good work to continue, and for the good people to continue doing that work.
How have you found working, actually with the county council now, embedded as a paid up member of the council? Has it been a different transition from sort of, private sector to the public sector? I suppose GFirst has always been public sector. Well,
GFirst is a private company. So, I mean, obviously it's different. I was chief executive of GFirst. So you have different responsibilities, different accountabilities. In the council, I'm director of economy and environment. It's a much bigger organisation, so there are different procedures and processes in place. What I would say is that the people working in the organisation are excellent. They know their stuff. They care about what they're working on. They genuinely come in every day and want to do the very best for the people and communities that they're serving. That hasn't been a surprise, because I've worked with lots of those people previously in my role at GFirst, but it's been really good to see just how hard people work and how much they care about the bits of the county council that they're responsible for and that they're working in. Is a really excellent team of people.
Yeah, I think sometimes they get it's easy. They're an easy target to kick out, and a lot of the people there, the officers and the councillors, work tremendously well. There are good and bad in all councils, councillors as well. But from the ones I know as well and work very closely with, they work extremely hard and professional.
I think it's really easy to try and create that divide as well, isn't it, between private sector and public sector, and voluntary and community sector as well, which Gilli represents. And actually, everybody's trying to do their best on the whole. And across all of those organisations and types of organisations, as you say, Mark, there are mostly really good people, and there's a few bad apples. But that exists right across all organisations, doesn't it? So they're a really, really good bunch of people to work with, and they really do care about what they're doing.
Can I just quickly touch on your role as what's it, economic and sustainability? Is it
economy and environment?
Okay, completely wrong. Have you got folks working under you on those particular bits?
Yeah, so I've got 4 areas that sit under me: waste and environment, employment and skills, strategic planning and economic development, and then libraries and registration services. And all of those play a role in development of the economy. And clearly what's become increasingly important over the last few years is the environment, climate change, how we shift our economy in Gloucestershire, how we do our bit to get to net zero as quickly as we possibly can. So it's a good marry up really between economy and environment, and making sure that those two are working hand in hand.
What I'm really liking and excited about it is the fact that so many different businesses, and those different businesses that you can connect the county council to at long last. Somebody actually who knows this sort of stuff.
There's an interesting fact as well. Sorry, I won't delay anymore. 51% of contracts that the county council let out in 22-23, I think it was, went to Gloucestershire suppliers. Wow. which is really impressive. Great actually, and much higher than you would assume it would be.
Yes.
Well, which is really good. Hopefully we get it higher. It's only 51%. No, fantastic. Thanks ever so much for that. Sarah, great to see you as always. What I love about you, you're always so enthusiastic. You're one of the most enthusiastic people I know. And when I talk to you about trying to get over 50s into work and all the rest of it, can you tell us about this multi-generational talent pool and all the rest that you're doing?
Yeah, well, I think the over 50s, we've got so much to bring to the work party, haven't we? We've got, we've got this crystallized wisdom, it's called. So basically, if you think of, your wisdom and your work knowledge as books in a library, when you're 25, your books might cover, half a wall in a room. When you get to over 50, your books cover 3.5 of those walls. So that's experience, expertise that you can draw on when you're at work. So over 50s have got a huge amount to bring to work. Now, they don't fit into a job box. If you've got one job box here, they're not going to fit into a square job box. They might fit into 3 or 4 job boxes. Now, for businesses, that's really great, because what it means is if you bring somebody who's over 50 into your business, then they might be able to do the marketing and the HR and this, that, and the other. They can do a bigger job than you might have thought they could do. So what that means is they're overqualified, which overqualified means really good value for money. So, we've got lots and lots to bring to the party. I think returners are people who've had career gaps as well. They might have downsized their career for things going on in life. Maybe they've got caring responsibilities. Maybe they've wanted to travel, whatever it is, but people coming back into the market. So when certain sectors say there's a talent shortage or there's a skill shortage, it's like, hold on, I'm not sure there is. I think perhaps we might be looking in the wrong place. And that's what I'm trying to do, join up. I work for a company called Connectr. I'm a fractional talent partner. And that means that I work part-time, basically, 3 out of 5 days. And, we join up organizations who need talent with talent that you can't find very easily. So the over 50s, only 16% of them are on LinkedIn. So you can't put a job ad on LinkedIn and find those guys. They're just not on LinkedIn. You have to look in different talent pools, different areas. And I think one of the things that I'm really interested in is intergenerational talent. So if you think about one job and then 2 people in that job, it reduces burnout. It's just, you get the reverse mentoring, all of the great things when younger and older people are working together. And I think that's something that companies are really missing. So it's sort of slightly difficult to organize. You might have 2 people in one job, but it's just, people get the flex they crave. The company gets the whole solution they want. And I think we're going to start to need to craft jobs, and we're going to start to have, need to change them from these sort of box shaped roles. I think that needs to change. So the role I've got has been shaped for me, basically. It's shaped to play to my strengths, all the things I do, and it's just great. And it's, we kind of crafted that together. The job wasn't advertised. There was a job advertised, but they looked beyond that and took me on. So yes, I think there's a lot of work to be done in the job market. And as I say, younger and more experienced people working together, it's just a no-brainer.
Over 50s, there's sort of 50-year-olds as well. There's sort of, some of them have a lot less confidence coming back into the workplace as well.
Yes,
I think that's the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles, isn't it?
It is. Well, at Connectr, we've been doing a project with Phoenix, the Phoenix Group, actually, financial services company. And what they'll do is they're looking for over 50s. They have whole load of roles which are open to over 50s, and what they've done is, depending on how employable, they're working with the DWP as well, and depending on how employable the over 50s are, they'll give them a 1-day workshop or a whole week kind of wraparound workshop, and that's about CV building, confidence, looking at people's skills, values. And after that week, people are like, because it is confidence. If you haven't worked for a long time, you do lose your confidence. So there is a real issue there. And also, I think when you're sitting outside of a business, you think, oh, can I do it? Or am I any good? Or will any, and once you get into that business, you just have to be human and just do what you do. And we've all got strengths and, lots of things we can bring to the work party. So yeah, they're doing really great work. And of course, we've got 50-50 challenge going on in Gloucestershire, which is amazing. And that's about working with 50 employers to get 50 people over the age of 50 working 50 hours. That's on a it's not being paid basis, but that's so employers can have a really good look at the over 50s, because it's a bit like graduate recruitment in a way, not in the way people apply for roles, because graduates and young people are really happy applying online and doing this, that, and the other. Older people need a higher touch approach. They need conversations, and the more conversations you have with those over 50s, kind of the better the result. And organizations need to know those over 50s, really. So it's, if you've got them in your business for 50 hours, you can really see which jobs they can do and how they'd add value. So fantastic campaign here. Lots of things on our doorstep as always.
And I hate to say it, not being funny, the over 50s can actually pick up a phone and phone people, which a lot of our young people, unfortunately, don't seem to be able to have that skill or that confidence to do. But anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole at this particular moment. Sarah, thanks ever so much for that. Gilli, Welcome to Punchline Talks. Lovely
Thank
to
you
see
very much.
I heard you talk at an event. You completely blew me away. So I really want to get you on the show to explain about the fantastic work that you do. Can you can you tell us what you do then,
Tell
please?
us about rape. So Gloucestershire Rape and Sexual Abuse Centre charity started, well, almost 40 years ago. Next year will be our 40th birthday, which, as I've said before, I'm not sure if that's something to celebrate or not really, but we support anybody in Gloucestershire. Started off as just supporting women and girls who had experienced sexual violence, but in actual fact, GFirst has broadened now because we recognise, you know, everybody needs support if you've experienced sexual violence. And so we support those people who decide they want to go through the criminal justice system. So to report to the police, whatever, you know, whether it's rape or sexual violence of a different nature. And our independent sexual violence advisors will advocate for them. They'll liaise with the police and with other agencies, and they will give them support, and they'll go to court with them. Obviously, we can't influence or be seen to affect any reports or the criminal alleged incident that's taken place, but we will work with them through that. And so, as you'll know, the court system and just, you know, the number of courts as well in Gloucestershire means that we can be working with those people for 2, 3, 4 years before they ever get to court. And we also get a lot of adjournments as well, because you have to be a specific with a special ticket as a judge to hear sexual violence cases. So we work with those people for a long time, and they give immense support and also just practical support as well. So it might be that, you know, for them to feel safe in the interim, that we can seek funds for them for one of those camera bell ringers so they can see who's approaching the house, that sort of thing. So there's practical support as well as emotional and advocacy. And on the other side, we then have emotional specialist support workers, and we work with people then of 13 plus. So from 13-year-olds to 70-year-olds, 70 plus, 80 plus, who are ready to start their healing process, to talk about in a really safe space about what's happened to them, how it's impacted on their life, and to really try and help them to recover and move forward. And I can think of, I clearly don't know the client themselves, but, you know, we have somebody who's, probably many, but, you know, one in particular I think of who's in their 70s, and he's come to us, and he was sexually abused as a child, and you think of everything that has happened during that life and that abuse has impacted, and I feel you know, quite emotional really, that we can perhaps help somebody in their latter years to move forward. As I say, new to the business, and one of the things that's really struck me as well is the prevalence of sexual violence. And I now stand in rooms or in supermarkets, and you look around at the number of people, and if you take the stats of 1 in 4 women will be raped or, you know, seriously sexually abused as an adult. 1 in 18 men will also be sexually abused or raped as an adult. Again, if you look in the room and there are 30 women, the national statistics say that 1 in 30 women will have been raped in the previous 12 months. And this is not all stranger rape. The vast majority of rapes and sexual assaults happen, you know, with people that are known to the victim or the survivor. And I guess the other one that's also very that I find hugely challenging is 1 in 6 children are sexually abused. And it doesn't choose postcards, it doesn't choose professions, and yes, and it can happen to anybody at any stage in their life. So we work, and, you know, the feedback that we get from our clients on the whole, you know, it doesn't work for everybody, or we can't get the results in court that we'd like for them. But we believe everyone, we understand, and we're not judgmental, and those are key to us. And it's really, really important.
Okay, Gilli, look, how can the business community help you? You know, if your business watching this now, what sort of support do you need?
Well, corporate sponsorship. Just, you know, Hazelwoods were amazing last year, and we're very lucky this year with PGT. But it's really quite difficult, and it's spoken about across the rape crisis centres. corporates very often don't want to support rape crisis centres. It's a bit unpalatable. It's quite confronting, isn't it? And then they're worried that that means there is a culture of, you know, rape or sexual violence in their organisation. That's why you're supporting it. And that's not the case at all. If you just think of those statistics and think of the number of people in your organisation who may have been affected, or somebody close to them may have been affected, then actual fact, I see, you know, that's really supportive to see that, you know, people would support us with sponsorship and take us on. And I don't mind whether somebody goes and does a sponsored walk or jumps out of a plane, or whether whole corporate takes on. That's fine. But we would really look for support and for companies to recognise that sexual violence happens, and it will be happening to their staff as well. So I suppose, can I add to that one? So we're 40 next year. My aim would be that we had 40 businesses, or, you know, individuals, but 40 for 40, and that would be my target, and we'd love that.
Okay. One thing I would like to add, I think you're definitely right. Well, I was speaking to a group of people yesterday and said, oh, you know, that you guys were coming on the show, and they said straight away, oh, that's going to be a barrel of laughs.
Yeah, but
and do you know what I mean? And that is exactly what we're trying to say, is that you guys need the help. It is out there, staring us in the face, in the supermarket, everywhere.
So can I tell you about something else that we're also working towards? So it always feels as if we're, you know, bit shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted. What we do in that respect is extremely important. But in actual fact, what we'd like to do is have some impact upon the culture. You know, and if we go back to those comments I said in the newspapers. So we're also now doing more work in schools, and the University of Gloucestershire has adopted us of their charity and the Chancellor's charity. So working with them and to try and take out more preventative programmes. So in terms of bystander training, so that people understand you don't have to physically go and challenge anybody, but it's changing the language. It's about not accepting people saying misogynistic stuff, and because that's just what's done. It's about trying to do that, trying to teach, you know, youngsters from a young age. You know, we find the teenage young women they're fired up. They, you know, understand what's wrong, but it's actually about changing everybody's attitude in those schools. And so we want to support the schools, and we want to support the universities and any businesses as well. As you know, I can wax lyrical about what we do and what the level of need is.
Well, we definitely have a large business audience, as you know, and a school-owner audience as well. Thanks ever so much for that, Gilli.
Thank you.
Let's quickly go to pick out the pick of the punchlines then, please. What have you picked out for us, David?
Cheltenham Borough Council's plans to sell Regent Arcade, which I think was your story of yesterday, Mark, which many people may not well know that Cheltenham Borough Council owns Regent Arcade. They do. They've got a 163 years still to run on a long leasehold, and they own the freehold. That's handed over to Canada Life, so they've got to deal with Canada Life at the moment, but they're looking to sell their interest in Regent Arcade, Cheltenham Borough Council, so that they can reinvest the money into other priority projects. And it sort of feels to me like that makes sense. You know, maybe owning a shopping centre in Cheltenham at the time was probably absolutely the right thing to do to get the regeneration of Cheltenham going when Regent Arcade was first built. But there are other priorities for the Borough Council now, and taking the money from Regent Arcade and investing it into those other priorities sounds to me like a reasonably sensible thing to do.
It's funny, it's the exact opposite of Gloucester City Council, who now own King's Walk and Eastgate Shopping Centre. Yeah, I agree. But no, thanks ever so much for that, David. Sarah, why don't you pick out the pick of the punchlines, please?
Pick of the punchline. It's the Forest of Dean. I always go with the Forest of Dean. You know, there's such a positive outlook for the Forest of Dean. That's your headline, Mark, and it's all happening. It's all happening here. And we've just got these amazing, we're doing a lot of work with the Forest Economic Partnership, education and skills. That's about kind of connecting pupils, younger people, more experienced people to the amazing businesses on our doorstep. So again, when a business is looking you know, talent, it's literally on their doorstep. It's in their local schools. Go and do some interviews in your local schools. Go and see those, you know, those kids, and you'll be absolutely amazed. They're extraordinary. They also, those kids need work experience as well. I do a lot of work with year 11s. You can tell the difference between kids who've had work experience, children who've had work experience, and children who haven't. So businesses, please you know, engage with those children, get them in your business, and that'll give them the interpersonal skills. You know, they have had a couple of 3 years of COVID, kind of interrupted school, and those are the things that kind of gone by the wayside. And I always talk, don't I, about work experience, Mark, talk about Googling swimming. You know, if you Google swimming, it's just not the same. You know, Googling how to swim, it's kind of getting in a pool, getting your hair wet, you know, those strokes, and getting cold, and work experiences like that. So anyway, Forest of Dean, yeah, we're doing great stuff. Diving centre.
Thanks ever so much for that, Sarah. Gilli, what have you picked out from the pick of the punchlines? It's my new saying, pick of the punchlines, so I've said it 4 times now.
So, well, I was just thinking about your comment about people you were speaking to yesterday and the fact that I was going to be on. So now I'm going to bring it down again, but was about your article about the sexual entertainment venues and the license application going to Cheltenham Borough Council. And it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, you know, as a feminist organisation, we don't applaud or encourage sexual entertainment values. I suppose venues, I guess personally, one of my issues is that Cheltenham Borough Council would want to consider the licence. You know, I read on the website that we're a centre of culture, and you know, we're genteel and all the rest of it, and then we're prepared to support licenses being awarded. And it's all, you know, in some regards, I applaud the businessman because he is actually applying for a licence. Whereas lots of other sexual entertainment venues, because they are just for short bursts of time, they don't actually need a licence. They can operate without one. So, you know, on the one hand, he's doing the right thing. But I have an issue with the fact that it means that Cheltenham encourages that attitude during those race meetings of go to the races and then get shipped down in a bus, and it's all a bit of everybody's up for it in Cheltenham. And I think there's a responsibility that the Borough Council has, as well as other businesses.
I actually think it makes Cheltenham look bad. You know,
no, I think so,
Cheltenham is beyond that, but it's not a lot the council can do, really. Thanks ever so much, my fantastic panel. Really great to see you. Thanks ever so much for your time today. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be back next week. And remember, it's all in the punchline. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye.
Thank you.